Get ready as we embark on an expedition with our next guest, an individual who dared to redefine his destiny, the remarkable Michael Lewis. We cover his memoir, The Vulnerable Career Switcher, one individual's journey of curiosity, free will, and persistence out of accounting and into a marketing career. Learn about the challenges he faced during his transition, the strategies that fueled his triumphs, and the wisdom he's gained along the way. Prepare to be enlightened on the art of networking and crafting a powerful, personal brand that stands out in today's competitive landscape. We dive headfirst into the dynamic universe of digital marketing. He will help you navigate the rapidly evolving world, stay sharp, and shine amidst the digital dawn. Learn how mentors can reshape your path to greatness. If you're an aspiring career switcher, a marketing maven seeking enlightenment, or simply someone yearning for an inspirational tale, look no further. The journey of Michael Lewis awaits, wrapped in a podcast episode that promises to inform, engage, and uplift. Episode 4, featuring Michael Lewis, the Vulnerable Career Switcher. Your path to inspiration begins now. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Articulate This. This week, we have Michael Lewis, who is digital marketer, author of The Vulnerable Career Switcher. He's also the founder of Careerist, a career coaching and marketing agency, and he's the VP of Business Development at Epsilon, a Publicis Media Group company. Thank you for joining this week, Michael. How are you?
Good to be here, Pat, and I'm doing great. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in accounting and marketing?
Yeah, accounting, which is the first decade of my career. I had switched majors out of engineering in undergrad in university, and I was going to have to take a little extra time at school to finish and actually get a degree in accounting. And my father, basically, who was covering some of the tuition costs, said, "You better actually go accounting at this point because I want you to be guaranteed a job." So I kind of worked myself into accounting by virtue of having to switch majors and doing it a little late. But it was actually a great profession, and it was very informative, educational. I gained a lot of experience. I did both individual and corporate level tax management, tax accounting, tax strategy. I learned a lot about the tax law without getting a law degree. And I think it was a good baseline, but I knew I wasn't going to be interested in it forever. And I kind of worked my way into being interested in marketing by doing a lot of process of elimination, meeting and speaking with a lot of people in different careers, and actually going to grad school about 8 years into my career.
That's incredible. So what inspired you to write The Vulnerable Career Switcher? What do you hope that readers get from or take away from the book?
I wanted people to realize that you don't have to go all the way through your career in a single skill set or single specialization. It may take some work to make a switch, but it's almost never too late to switch. And I did my switch in my early 30s. So I already had a wife, I had a couple kids, and it was therefore, I had a lot more responsibility. It wasn't like I could just go back to square zero and start off making what I'll call entry-level money again in a new career. So I had to find a way to think about a transition, but do it in a way where I could sell to the hiring company that I had some transferable skills from other careers, and that I could actually bring something of value to them while also acknowledging that I didn't know marketing very well at the same time. And then the other thing is just the classic imposter syndrome. So we all think, we all have that voice in our head that says, that's critical of us, right? That says you're not as cool or as big or as amazing as you think. And the world may figure out that you're a fraud. And so I wanted the world to figure out that, or to understand that we all have those feelings. So if you're having those feelings of doubt, but you still want to switch careers, you can. It's going to take some work, but you can do it.
You actually kind of led into the next question I was going to go with, and it
Yeah.
was trying to understand, the challenges you faced during the transition, how you overcame them, and accounting to marketing, those are very different professions. So how
Yes.
did you navigate that?
Not well at first. One of the chapters that in my book that is essentially the first chapter after the career switch is called
Yep.
essentially kind of embracing chaos, right? And it was just a total shifted mindset. I had come from as a skill set and a profession where it was very predictable. There was still a lot of work. We worked long hours at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I was before I switched careers. But the project length that I had on any given project at PricewaterhouseCoopers was anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks. And what that meant was that you were managing almost like a single focus, single project for that long. And there's all these micro steps in between, but you kind of knew what your mission was on day one of the 12 or 24-week project. And so you could I'll call it, you know, guardrail and kind of, time box what you needed to do between step A and step Z. And all of a sudden, I walk into this marketing profession. And my main job at the beginning was actually supporting the delivery of email marketing campaigns on behalf of brands or our clients at my new company. And I had 5 clients, and they had all kinds of campaigns going on at all kinds of different times with different and unique needs, targeting and segmentation criteria, and all that. So everybody's emailing you at all hours of the day and night, and they have questions that could be tactical and they have questions that could be existential, and you're trying to triage all of this. So it was really chaos when I walked in the door. And part of the reason that it was chaos is because this was the beginning of the internet era,
Mhm.
and the company I was with had underhired or had not appropriately staffed the demand that they had. So everybody's running around kind of recklessly and aimlessly a little bit. And I just kind of joined the club, if you will. So it was not easy. And I did make a lot of mistakes in the early going. The one thing I did that I brought over from PwC that I think was useful in those early stages was ownership and accountability. So when I made a mistake, I told my boss that I made a mistake. I made sure the client knew that there was an issue. And I said, here's the problem. Here's what we're going to do to solve it. And here's how we're going to avoid doing it again in the future.
You're kind of reading my mind because that was going to be my next question about the transferable skills. But I will kind of reinforce the way you did handle. I had the pleasure of working with you at a previous
Yes.
company many moons ago, and I could say to the audience here, you were very efficient, amazing at being extremely responsive with all the chaos that you were dealing with. So it was a pleasure, and I was always blown away how you were able to do it because you were extremely consistent, very organized, and were able to get back to me within like a very you were like textbook response. I knew exactly if it was 4 hours, 8 hours a day, depending on the urgency of the matter, how
Yep.
you were going to get back to me. So it was pretty amazing to watch that in action.
You were a beneficiary of all my early mistakes during that chaotic period in the early 2000s. Yes. Thank you.
You talk a lot about the importance of networking and personal branding in the book. Can you share some tips of building strong professional network and personal brands?
Believe it or not, the networking skills, if you will, that I've gained have actually happened during my marketing career. I actually had terrible networking skills, and I didn't have a terrible network, but I just was underutilizing the network and didn't know how to take advantage of it in my accounting career. So in my accounting career, when I was trying to make the switch, I was really going to what I'll call more classic modes of trying to find my way into a new industry. I was still at B school when I had made the decision to switch careers. So I used the Career Services Center at New York University, where I was going. I tapped them pretty deeply. I went on interviews on campus with them. I talked to friends, social friends of mine, about how their careers, both some fellow students of mine at NYU, but also people that I hung out with socially. But that was my network. And if they didn't have a good connection, then I didn't get access. And even when I did get access from time to time, I was pretty much afraid to ask them for help. I thought that that was what I'll call a sign of lack of either masculinity or certainty or commitment to being a professional. And so I was afraid to ask for favors, if you will. I didn't think it was, I felt it was the vulnerable part, frankly. So building the network was something I started to do when I realized how poor my networking skills were in that career switch. So my network, if you will, that I feel good about now is something I've constructed over the last 23 years. And it's something that I've tried to do by earning the network as opposed to cultivating a network and just getting friends or gaining contacts for the sake of having contacts. I've kind of looked at the network as a way to help others. And then, maybe 1 out of 10 times I ask for help.
In today's day and age, what tools do you use for networking? Is LinkedIn your only option?
LinkedIn is not the LinkedIn is a fantastic tool, but it's not the only way to conduct networking, right? We work, hopefully if you're in a company with, 20 plus people, you're going to have, that's 20 people plus that you could potentially have in your network. I'm not saying that you necessarily think they're all your besties, but these could be people that you work with every day. You serve them, they serve you. Some could be your bosses, some could be your equals, and some could be reporting into you. So that's essentially the beginning of a network right there. And so what I recommend is for you. I mean, I think we all know that nobody's really planning to spend 40 plus years at the same company anymore. Here I am. I've had a couple careers already. So, I haven't spent more than 7 years in a company as an employee. And I think that that's actually still pretty long in terms of a tenure now. I think the average tenure is probably closer to 2 to 3 years. So if you have a 30, 40-year career, you're talking about 15 to 20 companies. And that's one way to build a network. And I encourage you to keep in touch with people at each milestone along the way of your career, because whether it's on LinkedIn or email or mobile phone, or just meeting up with people for coffee or network events or beverages or dinners and things like that, if you're in town, those are great ways to keep in touch. And I think if you try to do it more on a social basis, then they're going to realize that these people care about you and you care about them. And then both parties will do right by the other party as you move forward in your life.
Great advice. So let's switch a little bit now, talk more about marketing and the fast pace that has evolved over the last 5, 10, 15 years in digital marketing itself. How do you stay up to date? What's your go-to to kind of keep the saw sharp?
Keep the saw sharp is important, and it's hard to do what I'll call systematically. It is something that you need to do. You need to actually invest time in that. And part of the reason I'm in marketing is because I think it is fascinating, and I still feel like I don't know everything I need to know about marketing. And by the way, I think that is a goal of a vain goal, not one that's actually achievable. Because what happens today in marketing is not what will happen 2 years from now, and 5 years from now, and 20 years from now. Good examples are TikTok was not around necessarily 8 or 9 years ago. Facebook was not around 20 years ago. Email was not around 30 years ago. So it's evolutionary. And part of it is the experience that you have actually executing and conducting your conversations day to day. But some of it has to be in the reading that you do and the industry activity that happens in the marketplace. So some of it happens what I'll call uncomfortably, because either your clients or your prospects are asking you about new technology that you don't necessarily know all that well yet. And so now you feel like you got to hustle to figure that out and be competent in it so that you can speak to your clients knowledgeably about it. Or you can bring in a subject matter expert about it, and then you get to learn about it that way. I've had the luxury of being part of large agencies for the past, for 10 of the last 15 years. And the large agencies, I'm now part of Publicis, as you mentioned in your intro. And I've also been at Wonderman, which was owned by one of the other big six ad agency global networks called WPP. And both of those entities have been very focused on educating their employees. So there's all kinds of video training on any type of topic, chat GPT, AI, Internet of Things. 10 years ago, it would have been, social media and mobile marketing. 5 years ago, it would have been what to do about TikTok and Instagram. So all of that is something you have to take a little bit of time and make a little bit of time to learn. But some of it's forced upon you and some of it should be your own interest in the industry. I think if you're not interested in the industry, you're going to kind of figure that out. And that might be one of your first signals that you might want a career switch. So if you don't find it interesting that, there's going to be new means and methods of marketing and you're in a marketing career, it could be a signal that you're not in the right career. But if you're interested in it and you're trying to consume it all, then you might actually be in the right place. And so the fact that I continue to want to consume it all, I'm a little bit behind on things like Chat GPT, but I've actually started using it as well to figure out how that might impact A, our jobs, and B, marketing. Signifies or implies that I think I'm still very fascinated by what we can do in marketing today.
Well, the natural curiosity is extremely important, and I guess it'll tell you if you're not interested in learning more of your craft, that might be an indicator, like you got to mention that
Yes,
maybe this is not the right craft for you.
exactly. And that's actually how I was feeling in the accounting industry. Is I would be in meetings about major planning, corporate strategy. I was helping with a massive insurance company trying to go public. I was helping another technology company carve out a company out of its entity to actually spin it off and make it go IPO. And you would be in these meetings where everybody's like, "This is amazing! Look at how deep we have to go in the tax code to figure this stuff out." And I'd be like, "I have to read tax code? That's not interesting to me. So I'm out." Is kind of how I was feeling mentally. Of course, I needed another job, but that was how I knew it wasn't for me long term.
You mentioned the value of mentorship. Can you talk about some of the mentors that you've had in your career and how they impacted you? I know in the beginning of the book you talked about that first manager that you had that kind of taking you off guard. I forget the name offhand right now, but you were surprised to see how he conducted himself and that you kind of benefited from, I guess, his leadership, his mentorship. Any other mentors that come to mind or you want to expand on?
Yeah. One of my first mentors was actually at PwC, Price
Yeah.
Warehouse. And he was, he actually is somebody who I've tried to model myself off of a lot as it comes to investing in employees and getting the best out of your colleagues. He definitely had a similar mindset. So he was going to business school at NYU before I had ever even thought of that as a concept. And he saw that I had potential and that I was interested in kind of a broader perspective on accounting and business. And so he really kind of invested time in me to make me as successful as I could be at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And that was a model that helped me want to do well and want to mentor others. I know some people don't get that, and I think that makes it harder for them to therefore want to pay back or pay it forward as they get older and more responsible in their career. But I would highly recommend you, if you don't feel like you've gotten some good mentors, but you still want to give back, always think about how you felt in those early years of your career and how you didn't know a lot and you were very uncertain, and all these people were probably just telling you what to do and what you got wrong. When you get somebody who actually tells you that what you got right, can be very encouraging and can be very empowering. And that mentorship means that you felt more confident in your day-to-day job and you felt more comfortable actually just going about your business. And that's actually good for the leader or the mentor too, because now they're leveraging their expertise across multiple people and it makes the whole company more productive.
Yeah, I liked the point when they were saying about going to business school, even though you were in accounting, because it added more value, added more as when you met with clients, you're able to connect with them at a deeper level. Um, I still see that today, like even like you learning about technologies, but the more you learn outside or expose yourself to other industries, verticals, what have you, the more you diversify it, I think you're able to have a larger lens, if that's the right word,
Yeah.
but being able to drive more value with your client relationships.
Yep. Yeah. And so, long and short is I agree with you. And, the one thing that I thought I took to when you and I got to work together is my mentor, Brad, and trying to do that, times, 1.5 or times two, and make everybody feel like they had the ability to, kind of run their own business and tap me for, to escalate things, to get noise out of the way, distractions, and just deal with those things so you could do the day job.
How has your career evolved since writing the book?
Interestingly, I released the book in November of 2019, so it was well received. I got a lot of fanfare about it around Thanksgiving, the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday, and then the Christmas holiday. Um, and then there was a nice bit of a medium tail, not a long tail, but a medium tail after the holidays. But that was at the beginning of COVID, as COVID was beginning to rear its head in the U.S. and Canada. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there riding that momentum, and then all of a sudden the world changed, and so as expected and as it should be, everybody got focused on how to stay safe, right?
Yeah.
How to socially distance, how to work in a remote environment for most of us, and then of course the very unlucky, part of our society had to go to the grocery store and process everybody else's food and all that, right? And do deliveries and the essential employees. So um, it just changed everything. So it actually, Pat, I would say it didn't help my career per se, other than it's a nice conversation piece when somebody figures out that I actually wrote a book, and it's kind of a fun conversation to have. And then what happens usually is I start chit chatting with somebody at work or at a client about this, and like maybe they say something like, "I wish I could write a book someday," and if I'm feeling a little bragworthy, I'll tell them that I did and how I did it. And if they happen to know, then we have a little bit of a fun conversation about it. And I say it's kind of part memoir, part story, and part how to, right? But it hasn't necessarily vaulted my career, but I think it's made me a little bit more of a well rounded person. And it was a life goal. So it was something I'm still very happy I did. And I did it for what I'll call personal, motivational reasons, as opposed to trying to get a message out there and try to expand my career.
So let's talk more about the writing process for the book. Like how, at what
Sure.
point did you say, "Hey, you mentioned it was life goal, so you probably
Yeah.
you were thinking about it for a while. What finally made you do it, and then how did you do it?"
It's funny that you asked that because I was always trying to figure out when can I do it. I think one of the first things that an aspiring first time author is trying to sort out is how am I going to create blocks of time to write a book? And the truth is that doesn't really exist unless you are, the either the other Michael Lewis or a world famous author who's already now, getting advances to write the next book, and that's all they have to do. 99% of authors don't have that luxury. We don't get to retire off the royalties of our books. So we have to do it in between family and work and jobs and other responsibilities. And so what I was doing at the beginning was just trying to figure out if I could actually pull this off. And interesting, on a ride home from a vacation, my wife and I were splitting the driving responsibilities. And when I was not driving, I opened my laptop and I was just, playing with some things online and looking at my work responsibilities for the next day when work came back. And then I would realize maybe I should just put some pen to paper here and see what I could do. And so I literally wrote page 1 of the book. And that's all I had written that day. But that motivated me to continue. So about a week later, the next weekend, I pulled 30 minutes to the side and wrote page 2. And then I started realizing that I could actually do about a page on my commute into and out of work every day. And so I started doing page 3, 4, and 5 like that. And that process took from the spring of 2018 until about the spring of 2019 to get to a point where I wrote 11 chapters and what I felt was a full story, and one at which by that spring of 2019, I was comfortable printing out the manuscript and then going back and proofreading it. So it was very much a baby step orientation. I did have an outline before I started writing page 1, so I knew kind of what I was trying to cover in each chapter. But then it was just about writing to the point where I could come up with something. And some days, that commute into work resulted in 2 sentences, and in other instances, that commute into work resulted in 3.5 pages.
Yeah. It's kudos to you for the discipline. I guess maybe even that from your accounting days when you had to be very planning and organized that came in to help you with this.
Yes.
Do you see any other? You went from accounting to marketing. Anything else that's piquing your interest? Space exploration. I don't know. And anything that's coming to your mind where?
Good question. Well, I have. The book that I wrote is about career switching, and I've always had interest in career mentoring, career advising. I found that even when you and I were working together, that one of my favorite parts of the job was when I was having one-to-one sessions with teammates like you and our other colleagues. And everybody's different. Everybody's in different points of their career, different points in their life, different points in their goals that they had. And part of the challenge for a manager was to try to solve the puzzle of, A, how long were they going to likely stay with us at our company? B, what could I do for them that would make them happier in the next 6 to 12 months if I could control anything at all? Because sometimes I couldn't. And what am I learning from all of this too? Because oftentimes the way that a good manager or leader becomes more effective is by getting the feedback from his or her teammates. And so I think all of those things were really important to informing, the path, if you will, to a better career for each individual as well as for me. And so I look at a third career for Michael Lewis as being one that's focused on career advisory services, career promotion for others, career advocacy for people who may be underprivileged. And I try to do some activity in each of those buckets each year. And maybe someday it'll be an actual full-time job, but right now it's a part-time job.
It's I will say you were an excellent mentor.
Thank you.
You were fantastic to work with. I remember how you took everything. You were very diligent with everything that you did, and you were very thoughtful, and it came across in our the work experience. So kudos to you, and thank you very much for those experiences. So something's been bugging me for a while. I was gonna wait till a little bit later to ask you, but I have to ask you now. Can you please expand more about your hate list that you had when you were younger, in the car list, the playlist?
Yes, the hate tape, as we called it.
The hate tape, that was it. Yeah.
Yep. So I was a summertime landscaper in between years of my university, and that was just the summer job I chose to take. And I had a couple high school friends join me at the place that we were all landscaping one summer. And when you're landscaping, you have large buckets of time of what I'll call mental boredom. You're actually, the physical work is intense. You're outside, it's hot. I'm mowing lawns, or I'm doing weed whacking, or cleaning out the duck pond, or landscaping by the pool, or jackhammering new cement and all that. So it's very intensive work. But for those more rote exercises like the mowing of the lawn, where you're just going back and forth on the property's lawn for sometimes 2 and 4 hours at a time, you get a lot of free time to think about all kinds of things. And my friends and I were we were high school, late teens, early 20s, and we were all into music, and so we had music that we all commonly liked, and we had some music that we didn't quite like as much. And so this was the era of the cassette tape and the cassette mixtape.
Yeah.
And I realized that I knew enough songs that a couple of my friends hated so much that I put them all in a single mixtape. And when we would go out after work, sometimes I would make them listen to that and just watch the rage intensify in the back seat as we were driving around. And even funnier was, like, if we'd pulled up at a stoplight, it was summertime, I'd roll down the windows and we'd be raging to, Culture Club, I'll Tumble For You or something. Mm-hmm. And everybody would be looking at us from the neighboring cars like, what's wrong with those guys?
I took a lot, like I have it right here in front of me, like the list of songs here. They're not all that bad. I don't think I grew up on some of these ones. I can see how some of them can be annoying if you're driving in the car for
exactly
a while. But it would be a fun challenge. I'm not sure if you created this list already on Spotify or not, but we should put that on there and see who can tolerate that.
It really is about, could you actually withstand that playlist without, pulling your hair out, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I looked at it through that lens, I would agree to you that I would have to like skip a few of them and go through it. But
some of the songs are actually not bad, but when you heard them on repeat because they were the popular songs of the day, you got sick of them. Like, Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer. Just, he keeps saying, might as well face it, you're addicted to love. Like, that's, how many times could you actually hear that in a song without losing your mind?
So thank you for answering that, because once I saw that it was a fun prank I could see you do with your friends, but I wanted clarity because some of those songs I actually did like, so now
I actually like some of them now too, but again, when they were overplayed, it was too much to bear.
I hear you. Let's talk about, so we talked about the accounting, which was like the first 10 years of your career, then you transitioned to marketing. Is there any, like, when you think back of your accounting career, is there anything that you're proud of, or you're like, wow, I did that, that stands out for you in your accounting time? And is there, in parallel on the marketing side, can you see anything that accomplishment or a project you worked on that stands out with your experience with that?
Sure. In the accounting world, it was modest sentiments of success, the early going. And then as I got into some of that that more corporate work towards the end, I did some big stuff. And it wasn't just me, by the way. Like, some of these projects were 40 and hundreds of people at a time. But there was one or two projects where it was a small, tag team of me and, 2 to 4 others. And we helped some clients, who spend who pay a lot in taxes already, save millions of dollars in taxes a year. And, that was part of our job, was to say, we're not trying to avoid taxes illegally, but we're just trying to make sure that somebody pays the taxes they should pay, as opposed to paying more than they should. Because what happens, at least in the U.S. law, is if you pay more than you should, the tax law is interpreted in such a way where that would be understood and received by our government as that's what you owe. So it is possible for companies or individuals even to overpay their taxes. And part of our job was to try to help companies save millions of dollars when possible, based on just looking at the letter of the law and interpreting it as aggressively as possible. And so I was proud of that work. It was not, we were not tax cheats. We were just trying to follow the law and interpret it as aggressively as possible. And we ended up saving, kind of surprising clients with how much money we could save them. That's the best part, right? Is when you have that surprise and delight moment with the client and they realize how valuable you are and you can actually feel the importance of your job. So that
Have you stayed up to date with the tax law at all? Like how much has it changed? Do you ever curious to go back, or are you like done with that chapter?
I wouldn't say that I'm well versed on the research and development tax credit, which was the work that we were trying to help maximize for our clients. Maximize the credit means you lower the tax, right? So
Hmm.
I haven't tracked that as effectively. Do I know how to pay my individual taxes every year? Yes. But even that has become more complicated with the passage of laws over time. Excuse me. So even I have somebody that I get help from to complete our tax work these days. And part of it's because I just didn't want to do it anymore after I had been doing that type of work professionally for so long. It's more fun to have somebody else do it, even though it does cost a bit of an arm and a leg to have somebody else take care of it. So
Makes
yeah,
sense.
I'm current enough to be dangerous and have a conversation, but you wouldn't want to hire me as your tax attorney or tax accountant anymore. Yeah, and then as it relates to, I'll call it, thrills that I've had in marketing. For me, it's chapter 10 of the book, and chapter 10 of the book is about a major account that we had at the first company that I joined in digital marketing in the early 2000s, and it was as all large companies are, it was complicated, but they had essentially a consumer division and a B2B division, and because I was still kind of coming on board when I took responsibility for the account, I was just busy trying to ramp up and learn how to do marketing. Meanwhile, the client was already getting angry with our employer, with our company, in terms of the technology was not as up to speed as what it seemed like other competitors could offer. And we were not over serving them. And part of it was they were probably being able to figure out that I was a little bit new on the newer side. And they were a large company, so they had all the other competitors in our industry kowtowing to them and whining and dining them. So they just were swooned by everybody who came by and said, our toy box is better than theirs, right? So long and short is that I immediately almost had to go into defense mode with this client. And for about an 8-month period, we were in what we call an RFP mode with them, or request for proposal. And so we were responding to a proposal request, but so were our competitors, and we knew that. So we were, on edge for all of those 8 months. And the what I'll call the plum business of the two, and the B2B and the consumer, was the consumer business. They were responsible for about 70% of the revenue that we generated from this company. And unfortunately, despite all of our efforts and a lot of our own whining and dining and getting up in front of the client and presenting things and telling them how we were going to change, they left us, and it was brutal. And it was so brutal that a week and a half after they told us that they were leaving for one of our direct competitors, our company had to let about 8% of its staff go. And guess what? I got lucky enough to stay. I don't know how that happened. I probably should have been let go with them. And that would have changed the trajectory of a lot of my career because I was only a year in to my new career. I might have had to go back to accounting. But I knew that some things had to change. So I kind of internalized all this awful news, business wise, as well as a lot of my colleagues who got laid off, partially because of me. And I said, well, I got to change my behavior here a little bit. I got to go get this B2B group and save them. And so the B2B group was based in the Northwest. And I started calling up some of my contacts there and say, hey, I want to come up and visit you and just catch up. And I kind of played it off as like, I think it's time for us to do kind of a quarterly review. But I think they figured out right away that I was panicked. So I went up there, I wined and dined them. I sat down with them and asked some questions about their business that maybe I should have asked a while back. And things were kind of all, it was clear that there was some tension underneath that wasn't being addressed. But I had the dinner with them. I did all these Q&A sessions. I said, I'll come back in 2 weeks and I'll do some reviews with all of you. After the dinner, one of my main contacts calls me up on my cell phone and says, hey, the boss man wants to meet with you tomorrow. So let's don't fly home at 10 a.m., stay an extra day and fly home at 5 p.m. And I got a conference room set up for us at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, thanks. Hang up. And I'm like, oh, shoot, we're done. I'm toast. And then the rest of chapter 10 really talks about the deep dialogue that we all had at 1 o'clock and me just trying to find a way to salvage the business, take their feedback, say that I'm here, I'm listening to you guys. There's a lot of people behind me that think about your business every day. We do a lot of work for you, and we know your business now. And I didn't have to beg. I didn't have to, kowtow to them. I was very matter of fact. I was, calm in the room. And I told them what I knew and what I didn't know. And I told them what I think we could do and what I could go get my leadership to approve. And so they kind of asked for some free stuff. And I asked in return for a commitment to stay with our company. And we ended up keeping the business. And it was not easy. And it was earned by a lot of people, not just me. But my proud moment was me up in that room, in that conference room with the boss man, in the throes of, live bullets, I'll call it, in corporate speak, trying to, salvage the business. And we did. And that business ended up expanding so big that it actually offset the loss of the consumer business we gave up, 6 months before. So that's my proudest moment. We've had a lot of proud moments since then, but that's right in the book for you.
It's awesome. Those are the ones that, like you say, they're memories, they stick with you. They're good to reflect on.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do you balance work and personal life between switching careers, like when you were talking about that transition, but like in day to day, and is there any sort of advice you can give to someone now struggling, trying to find a balance between personal and work?
I would say this, that there's going to be moments in your career where you're going to have to really press and it's not going to necessarily all balance out. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's always unicorns and rainbows. I do believe, like as I've gotten older, and I think like a lot of the medical and health and nutrition literature has gotten smarter and more relevant about how all these things interact with each other. I think sleep is important. I think exercise is important. I think having a life outside of work is critical as well. At the same time, you're just never going to be able to balance them all ideally every day. So I think if you're thinking work-life balance, you should think about it in the context of months and quarters and years as opposed to days and weeks. So hopefully you're in a company where if there are surges, if there are intense moments, you can apply yourself and you've got an understanding family or social network outside of work that will be okay with that. And I think that that's important. But hopefully there's also some times where there's a little bit more slack and you can leave at 5 o'clock or you can shut down at 5 o'clock if you work remotely and go have a life. One of the things that I've always tried to do throughout my career is stay as fit as possible. Not necessarily hyper fit, but reasonably fit. I'm a runner. I'm not a fast runner, but I tried to run 15 to 20 miles a week, 4 or 5 mornings a week before work. And doing it before work meant that I didn't have to stress about having to do it later when the workday got out of control or got out of hand. And so I think that actually helped me be focused at work, have energy, be confident, feel like I've actually done the hardest part of my day before I even walk into the office. And I think that helped me have some balance as well. But I hope that that's a comprehensive enough answer, Pat, is that I think now that we know that nutrition is so important, sleep is so critical, Try to balance it so that you feel like you got it over the course of a month and a quarter and a year. But if you're off on a week or 2 weeks in a row, I think that that's okay. But if you're in an employer situation where you're not happy and you're working 80 hours a week, I would say get the resume going, circulate it, work the network, and find a place to have better balance.
So you mentioned running as an activity, but what other
Yep.
things do you like to do for yourself that on your downtime that kind of recharge your battery?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a father of 3 children. I'm married, so I'm no stranger to Netflix in the evening and just watching some streaming. Um, I mentioned running. All of my kids were doing sports activities and acting and performing. They've played instruments. Excuse me. So I've gotten to see concerts of theirs and plays and shows of theirs over their childhood, which was just a pure joy. I think if you have children, I think watching them in any kind of performance, whether it's music, acting, or sports, I'm not sure there's any better thing to watch in life. So I hope anybody who has children or chooses to have them have those moments of joy, because I think as any parent knows, it's a labor of love, and the labor is a key part of it. There's a lot of work involved. So that's where some of the free time goes. But I'm working on a second book. It's a slow roll. I'm taking my time with it. I hope to release it I was hoping to release it in around Thanksgiving of this year. I think I might need one more year. And it's kind of one of those methodical approaches, Pat, like I did with the first book, where I'm just writing a little bit at a time. I'm having fun in the career that I'm in with the job that I have. So that's taking some time. Two of my 3 children have grown. I see them a lot in a more adult way now. I go to events with them and see them, where they live. One's in Philadelphia, one's in Boston, and I try to do more fun things with my family, just in terms of vacations and in getaways and such.
Is there anything you could share about the book that you're writing now? The premise or anything, or is it still top secret under wraps?
It's not top secret. It's about gratitude, but it's not a lecture about gratitude. I'll leave it at that. That's the goal, is to have it be about gratitude, but not be a lecture like, Pat, you should be thankful. That's not what I want the reader to walk away with. It because I don't have it all figured out in terms of gratitude, but I know it's an important part of our life, and I'm trying to find the best way to express my gratitude for some people who've been important in my life.
Okay, so and finally, can you share any advice, words of wisdom for the listeners that may be facing their own career transitions or challenges right now?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. I think trial and error is important. And trial and error doesn't mean you have to quit your job and start another job. And if you hate it in 2 weeks, you quit that job and you start another job. And if you don't like that, you go, et cetera, right? It's not that. Trial and error can mean a few things. When I made the career switch, it's not like I had digital marketing as the exact target at the time. I knew I wanted to leave accounting. But you don't get job offers when you say you're trying to run away from another career. Nobody wants to hire you because you're not focused. So what I did when I knew I wanted to kind of, if you will, run away from tax and finance and accounting, was I started exploring a lot of other careers. And a lot of the exploring is free. It's basically, you go on job sites, you go Glassdoor or LinkedIn or other places and look at job openings. And hopefully you have at least some idea. You want to get in music and entertainment, start looking in that category. You want to get in travel hospitality, start looking in that category. You want to think about a specific skill set like marketing or advertising or programmatic media. Look, kind of categorize your search that way. And then part of the exploration process is actually reading job descriptions and seeing what they do and the types of companies that they're in. And you can start doing that trial and error just by that, by saying, oh, I don't think I'd like to be running spreadsheets all day. Or actually, I kind of like spreadsheets a lot. If that's 40% of the work or 80% of the work, let me go learn more about that job and apply for it. So that was part of the trial and error. Then the trial, part of it is interviewing. And you can interview at companies you may not end up being interested in. And you can then say, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Obviously, you're going to interview at a lot of places where they don't think you're a fit. And then hopefully you end up in kind of a funnel situations, right? Like, so you've looked at 100 companies, you've filtered out 40 of them. That means there's 60 that you're interested in. Maybe you get interviews at 10 at 6 of them, and maybe you get you're not interested in 2 of them, and maybe get an offer at 1 or 2 of them. And that's the process. And then the other part of the process is then you go work for them, and you figure out what you do and don't like about it. And you also take inventory while you're working at your current job of what you do and don't like about it. And I think that all that trial and error is going to be very informative for you as you try to figure out what you want to do with your career. And just know that nobody has all the answers. So give yourself some grace while you're evaluating all of this as well.
Well, Michael, I thank you so much for joining this week. It's been a delight to have you on. Where can people find you, and tell them where they could pick up their own copy of the book?
Thank you, Pat. The Vulnerable Career Switcher is on sale at Amazon, where I self-published it. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of Michael Lewis's on LinkedIn. So my suffix on linkedin.com/in/ is MPL, like Michael Patrick Lewis, 1968 /. And then lastly, you can write me.
Also.
Yeah, no, sounds good. And then you can also always reach me at michael@careerius.com. Careerius is like career with IOUS.com at the end.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you on. We'll definitely get you back on when you release the second book, but thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Pat. Good luck with the project.